Now, elevators. This is real quick history here. 1857. Remember that date. 1857. Okay. In fact, Arizona wasn't even a state then, right? Okay. Campbell, Whitner and Company began production of the screw lift machine whose capacity is 2,000 to 8,000 pounds. First elevator. Turn it by hand. It worked. It raised large tonnage of equipment, right, poundage, up to a second floor. Very archaic, but that was one of the first elevators. And then, the what? It was just one story. Yeah, typically, or even maybe just a couple feet in some cases, right? Okay. Then the first elevator for public use was 10 years later. And you ever remember those who used to have a bellman? Yeah. Actually, that used to run the levers and the switches. You know, they had that folding gate and says, you know, don't put your arm out because it'll be cut off, right, type thing. So a lot of safety devices weren't back in those particular elevators, right? And then the 1870, which you can see the evolution. I mean, somebody took on to this. Otis Tufts, again, Otis Elevators, okay? 2 elevators cost $30,000 in 1870. You can buy a state for $30,000 in 1870. So definitely, this were luxury elevators. But again, it was what? A mode of transporting people and materials from one floor to the next, right? So again, as you go down, 1931, okay, New York City Elevator Code was revised to allow, 1,000 feet per minute elevators in the Empire State Building. Imagine how fast 1,000 or 1,500 feet per minute is. That's fast. That's moving. Has anybody ever been in a high-rise, say 60 floors? You ever notice that they go up to the 30th floor, and then you got to get off that elevator, go to another elevator? Okay. You ever wonder why? Why not just go all the way up to the 200th floor, like the towers in Dubai, right? Well, one is the weight, the cables and everything else that supports that cab. Imagine running that. You know, not only is it the people, and they jam-pack the people in the elevators too. I'm going to get my money's worth out of this elevator. But then if you include the weight of the cab and all the cabling infrastructure, communications infrastructure, you know, for that, it adds weight to that. So wear and tear, if you consider how many times these elevators units go up and down, right? We were in, where was I? I was in Dallas at a convention, facilities convention of all places, right? World Workplace. And I remember we were staying at the Hyatt in downtown Dallas, Texas. And there was about maybe 15 of us facility managers, because we knew everything, right? And there was one female facility manager that stepped in the elevator with us. So we're in this elevator. We press the close button. It says which floor, 18th, 19th, 20th one. So all the buttons were all lit up, right? So the elevator goes and it makes this noise, zzz, and it didn't go anywhere. The doors opened. So we all look at each other. It says, you know what, must be a defective button. First thought, right? Hit the button again. So I hit the button again, and it kind of goes close, doors close, and goes zzz, right? The elevator kind of shakes a little bit. Doors open back up again. So the female facility manager immediately said, gentlemen, somebody needs to get out because we definitely overweighted this elevator cab. So she gets out and goes across the hallway to the other elevator, right? So now you got 14 facility managers, men, standing in this elevator and says, what did she know? Do that again. She was probably the one that contributed to the weight, right? Zzz, doors open back up. Now she's already gone. She's up in her floor. She's in her room relaxing, right? Here's 14 of us. I mean, everybody's watching us. Now we're too embarrassed to do anything. So finally we start looking at each other. It's like, oh, let me see, about 300 pounds. Yeah, you got to be at least 250, right? Nobody says, just all eye contact, right? It's all eye contact. So finally it says, you know what, I think I'm going to take a different elevator. So we lost like 4. So it says, okay, now we're ready to go. Same thing happened again. So now we're thinking maybe it's a defective elevator, right? Something wrong with the buttons, so we keep hitting the buttons. And I think we got down to 8 of us, and then it finally went up. I mean, we were bound and determined to make that elevator work. So after we stood there for like 15 minutes fooling around with this, I mean, I was waiting for the facilities folks to show them, says, gentlemen, please, get off the elevator, take the stairs, or do something. Get on a diet or something. But again, these are safety mechanisms built into the elevators, right? For one is to, again, preserve the safety of the occupants using that. Okay? That's what we thought. We complained. We complained. I mean, come on. 14 mature, experienced facility managers. There was something wrong with that elevator. definitely something wrong with that elevator. So anyways, the next morning we were at Starbucks, and that same female facility manager said, "You guys ever get up to your rooms?" We didn't want to say anything. She says, "Oh yeah, after you got off, we went right." Of course, we lied. We went right up to our rooms. Okay. So different types of elevators. Generally, two primary elevators. One's going to have electric, geared, and in some cases gearless, and also oil hydraulic. Okay. Geared traction provide a purpose. Okay, virtually limitless as to the rise. So you can go 40, 60, 80 stories, okay, whatever height you want to go. Hydraulic, on the other case, so is limited as to the level that you can actually take that plunger up. So typically, 6 floors is going to be the highest speed. Hydraulics typically lowers cost and at lower speeds as well. Okay, so remember those two. Okay, so the first item you're going to look at is the geared traction. Okay, so this is a direct drive shaft that's connected to the cab itself. Okay, and designed to operate anywhere from 100 to 500 feet per minute. So again, typically restricts their use to high-rise facilities. Okay, I mean, could you imagine going up 1,000 feet per minute in a 6-story building? I mean, that would be, what, a 2-second ride, right? You're there already, okay? And then they got the gearless traction, okay? Designed at a little higher operating range, anywhere from 350 to 1,200 feet per minute, okay? Again, movement, passengers. Getting the passengers up to the floors to become productive in their workspaces as quickly as possible. Okay? But every one of these mechanisms, from the cabs to the motors to the cabling to the trolley systems to the braking systems, components, everything associated to that's going to require regular maintenance. Okay? Usually performed by a contractor, okay? Qualified contractor. And then different types of hydraulic systems. One's the hold hydraulic. This is where you've got a plunger that actually goes on into the earth. Now it's double contained for the hydraulic fluids. I've got some elevators at my site that were installed in '65 that are hydraulics. I got to take out the entire elevator floor and dig down 40 feet to remove the old. It's not leaking, but it's a code requirement now. I got to upgrade that because it is a contaminant. Okay, because if I lost my oil at the bottom of my reservoir, right, it would actually eventually get into the ground. So that's going to be an environmental, issue. Okay. And of course, you got the holeless hydraulics, where you have a separate hydraulic tank, typically within some sort of mechanical room that's right next to the elevator. And sometimes you'll hear the pump, and you hear the tank with the relief valves. Okay. And you usually smell the oil in that particular case. So different types, and currently limited to a height of about 3 floors. Very easy to do, very compact. Usually come in compartmentalized, so you can actually install them fairly quickly, fairly easy, other than just building the shaft itself. Okay. And of course, you have your roped hydraulics. Okay, this is where you got your hydraulic lines that are actually connected to a pump. Okay, that operate the cab as well. Okay. Then the major components typically in the elevator system is going to be your machine room. Okay, so everything that's above the cab up on top. And there's also code requirements for this as well. Same thing here, accessibility. It's not so much for facilities, but it's primarily for the contractor. So in those particular design review meetings, you're going to have an Otis from Montgomery who will help design that, so they can put in their maintenance requirements for that particular elevator. Okay. And then, of course, the next you're going to have your cab. Okay. And everything from within the cab, the interior, the carpeting, your veneer, if it's steel, if it's stainless steel, wood, and so on, that's going to be required periodic maintenance. You got your packing blankets as well. You got all your mechanisms, your lit control buttons on the elevator. You're going to have an emergency phone, okay, on that particular one, ADA phone. You're going to have a fan inside the elevator required. In some cases, you're going to have a little air conditioning unit in that particular elevator as well. Lighting is going to be required for that, okay? And of course, one of the things that's most abused other than restrooms, the elevator, right? Because again, it's very easy just to push the button, without kicking the buttons and so on and so forth, okay? So again, very, very well used in regards to the interior cabs, okay? And the other item through would be the thresholds, believe it or not. When those get filled up with debris, construction, love construction. Because one, they sweep all that into the trough. So then my doors don't close. And then again, remember all the safety features? It's telling me that the door's hanging up, so I'm going to put this elevator out of service by itself. So in some cases, they'll send a signal back to the elevator company telling them that this elevator's been placed out of service. Typically, you'll find drywall, sheet metal screws, nails, pieces of conduit, and it keeps those doors from closing. Very simple things, but very real. Okay. And of course, you got your hoistways and pits, everything that's subterranean in this particular case. And again, popular belief is the custodians just open up the doors and just dump everything into the... No, that's not true. They don't do that, okay? But you do get debris, though, believe it or not. Just regular wear and tear and dirt, whatever gets past the threshold, it does drop into your sump, okay? And vertical transport. I got a couple pictures, too, in some of the elevator pits. So escalators, okay? Remember as a kid, you used to always check your shoes? Remember that, to see if they were untied or not? Your parents always look at your shoes. In fact, up until my kids were like 18, no, they're not 18. Maybe until they were 6, I used to pick them up because I didn't want their feet getting caught up in the escalator threads. That was a big worry, right? What do you do? Of course. Then the other item, too, is that people, you see folks taking strollers up these escalators. It's like, well, that's pretty bold type things. But again, regular maintenance, making sure that the mechanisms are clear of debris. They had a case study on some escalators in a convention center, and they always failed. I mean, the motors and the pulley systems, mechanisms, would last about 12 months. Out of all the convention centers, this particular convention center, they'd only last a year. After that, they would burn up. So they started investigating, the deeper investigation. And this particular convention center was in Ohio, I believe it was Dayton. But they always put on exhibitions in regards to landscaping. So they would always have soils and peat moss and so on. So when they did an investigation, found out that a lot of the times they would drop a bag of peat moss or just drop the droppings. And of course that would get tangled up within the gearing systems and the mechanisms. Okay, so those that were never cleaned out. So very simple. Remember, we're always trying to find what the cause is before we try to find a solution. Well, this was one of them in regards to that. So all of these items must be regularly inspected and cleaned out. Okay, and then when these fail, do you ever wonder when they're out of service and you want to get your exercise and it goes out like 4 stories, if you can walk up this thing? Of course, they got lockout, tagout, right? But typically they don't. Right? Imagine getting 100 people with their weight on this. I always have these dreams that I'll disengage, you'll break, and the thing will start going backwards. And then what do? Right? I mean, you can't run fast enough, right? They have things loaded. So, again, safety precautions. Okay. And then basic operating, again, keeping the elevators, interiors clean of debris. Okay. Door sill areas that I was talking about before. Lighting. Okay. Do not move furniture or other materials above or beneath the elevator cars. You don't want to store carpeting down in the pit, right? Or put some lateral files in there. Okay. Don't want to do that particular one. Okay. Ensure proper signage for proper use. Freight elevators would be another one. Again, you use freight elevators with haul material. But part of that was to make sure that you sweep up after. So you break a drywall, sheet of drywall in a freight elevator. Make sure that you sweep it up. So that one, it's not contaminated and tracked throughout the building, but also gets into the thresholds and into the bottom of the pit. Okay. Do not permit unauthorized people to have access to the emergency door keys. Do you ever see those in the movies? You ever see those little door keys? You put them in the hole, that little key fob drops down, and you just click it and it opens up the doors, and there's a person waiting there. It doesn't work that way. For one, it's going to take you, if you're not, one, authorized or qualified to do this, trust me, I know because I tried it. It took me 45 minutes to find that little mechanism. And then once I found it, and you open the elevators, which I shouldn't have done, there's another elevator cab set of doors. So it wouldn't have done me any good. So I got past the first door, which is on the elevator. There's 2 sets of doors. It's like, how about that? Hey, look at that. There's another set of doors. I didn't know that. Yes, that's the safety. So you don't, the doors, and you don't fall into the bottom of the elevator pit. Okay. So again, I was reprimanded by the elevator company saying, don't ever do that again, Patrick. If it's an emergency, call the fire department. But always call us. Don't be your MacGyver facilities, hero guys. So again, lesson learned for me anyway. So whole different story on that one. And then what to look for, again, evidence of any cab modifications, okay, that aren't authorized or required. Okay. Evidence of preventative maintenance logs, very big in that. Okay, the elevator companies will maintain the logs like clockwork. Okay, again, for the sakes of one's safety and also for any potential lawsuits if it does fail. ADA compliance, such as the Braille safety edges and lighting, detection systems. Getting back to the sprinklers, they are sprinklered in regards to the shafts, and typically it's a 1 hour wall to 2 hour wall within that particular elevator shaft. Okay, even though you're not supposed to take the elevator during fires, correct? Okay. Usually direct you to take the stairwell, those particular ones. Okay, machine room air conditioning, ventilation requirements for the gear because it does heat up. Okay, and this is something I contend with is controller obsolescence. They're old control systems that, again, it's the old analogs, not digital. So, again, I'm constantly upgrading my elevators. I've got 14 elevators at my site. So I'm always constantly going in and placing money into these elevators of some sort, some expensive money, too. So, again, recommendations, implement a PM program like you would anything else in that elevator. Typically, though, the maintenance or the elevator company will provide that for you. Okay. And then budget for end of useful life replacements. Okay. So in my particular budget, capital budget, I do budget for elevators. Replacement elevator every 5 years at my facility. I've replaced 3 of them already. So I got a ways to go yet. Okay. So here's some indication, worn shivs. Okay. Again, just wear and tear, regular inspections to identify these type of failures and potential fatigues. How about this one here? It's been seen some better days, right? Okay, but again, requirements for replacement. Okay, and how about that? I always wonder how the balloons got down here. But imagine the inspector though crawling. It's like, what is going on here? Right? That's where you do your CSI and you find out, okay, who dropped the drywall and who dropped the conduit, right? Take fingerprints and all that other stuff. Find out who the culprits were. But again, these should really be cleaned out. Then here's the typical maintenance plan, as I mentioned before. So it's outlined exactly what they're going to do with the PMs, if it's annual, semi-annual, the time it took, what the corrective actions were. And these are actually identified in your PM program. So our company is Centric, so they'll provide these log sheets every time they perform a PM on our elevators, and we'll download it into our CMMS system. So I have that electronically, digitally, in my records, as well as Centric as well. Again, it's just broke down, just like everything else, mechanical systems, electrical, plumbing, and so on. It's a complete list of what they're going to be required to do on it. Check out the cab, clean out the thresholds, look at the pit, okay, check the pressures, check the temperature of the hydraulic oil, switches, lockouts, relays. Okay. And for escalators, again, as we mentioned before, looking at the skirt panels, document any unusual noises or vibrations. So sometimes as you're going up that escalator, especially in Sky Harbor, you ever feel it pulsate? And you kind of like, oh, if I'm feeling this, those 400 people behind me are too. So you kind of wonder, is this normal? And you see everybody kind of jerk back and forth, and it's like, I think as soon as I get up to the top, I'm taking a different escalator, right, type thing. But again, unusual noises, if they're not reported, okay, the chances of a failure are extremely high. Somebody has to stop. Somebody says, there's something wrong with your escalator. Immediately, facilities respond. Then most we would do is put it out of order. Okay. Monitor for broken comb teeth. That's what cleans off your runners as you go up and down in regards to your threads, escalator threads. Okay.
Escalators are good because you got the shoe shiners on the sides.
Yeah. And you look at those. Yeah. So that you don't drop things into shoe shiner, so you put your shoe next as you go on. No, you don't do that. Yeah. And then you also see the escalator's got the little buttons. So in the movies, when you see, who is that? Yeah, that ain't going to happen, most escalators. You'll kill yourself coming down that way. Bruce Willis, he did that in one of his shows. He jumps on the escalator, slides down the middle, says, no, the buttons aren't there. The buttons are for you don't do that. And then you had also, believe it or not, teenagers that would try to take the escalator as tall as they can, hanging on to it off the side, until they fell off at one of the malls in Minnesota and got killed, and then they put the guards on the side. You ever notice the plexiglass? Everything is idiot-proof when it comes to an escalator. You've really got to go out of your way to fall off that escalator. Yes?
I saw this video of this guy, he was planking, or he was sitting on his stomach right in the middle, along so it would spin him around in circles, like right in the middle, going each way. And then the railing just breaks and the glass shatters.
Yeah, it's some scary stuff. I mean, if it hasn't been thought of, somebody's thinking about it. That's even scarier. But typically, it's just people movement. Just get up from the first floor to the second floor and then get off. Don't play with it, right? Okay, so my warning to you. Okay. Again, do not permit overloading of passengers or freight. You know, the best way to do that is regulate the speed on that. Okay. And then do not permit the use of an inoperable elevator as a stairway. I get back to the weight. Even though it has lockouts on it, typically when it's out of service, it's out of service. You shouldn't really be walking around, okay, the mark-off cones, again, using that. Okay. Basic operating guidelines for elevators, just the same thing, door sills, proper lighting, okay. Again, here comes that specialty service provider, as we talked about before. Okay. The other item, too, is overloading the elevator with equipment and freight. You know, trying to put desk in there that shouldn't be in there, so you're going to tilt it on its side. So you got to remove the light panel so you can put the desk in there. Typically, go use the freight elevator, right? Okay. And then what to look for, evidence of the cabinet modifications, okay.